Hello everyone, my name is Brendan Snyder. Thank you so much for joining me and welcome to another episode of Best Albums by Year 1976. This is a series where we will be looking back at the best 50 albums from the last 50 years, of which I'll only be choosing an artist once during the series. You may see some duplicates in terms of the runners-up, but not for each of the years, making it all that much harder. But of course, I think it's going to make it that much more fun as well. And so for this one, we're going to focus on 1976. But before we dive into that, if you are new to my channel and you haven't already hit the subscribe button, please click the button. Also leave a comment, hit like, all those things help support my channel. I would greatly appreciate it. And of course, as an added bonus, by subscribing, you'll be able to stay up to date on all that's going on in the world of music, just like this, with Best Albums by Year 1976. So in full disclosure, I was born in 1976, so we're finally at my birth year. And obviously I didn't grow up with this album. I'm coming at it from a different perspective, but I love the album all the same. So I want to set the context, give you guys a little bit of history about what was going on during 1976. And in the US, Gerald Ford was president through 1976, but he was defeated in the November election by Jimmy Carter. The first commercial flight of the Concorde takes off. This was the supersonic airliner. It's no longer around, but it was really a big deal when I was growing up. And the soon-to-be iconic movie Star Wars begins filming. Apple Computer Company is formed by Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak, and they released their first computer simply called the Apple I. Howard Hughes dies at age 70. He was a multi-millionaire businessman, and the U.S. Treasury Department introduces the $2 bill to mark the U.S. bicentennial. The first class of women are inducted into the U.S. Naval Academy. The game show Family Feud airs for the first time on ABC. And the Viking 1 lander successfully lands on Mars, and this was the one that returned the photo that was the famous Face on Mars picture. And then, unfortunately, the Tangshan earthquake hits China, killing 242,769 people. The Son of Sam begins his killing spree in New York City. The Muppet Show begins its broadcast on TV for the first time, and it's the 1,500th anniversary of the fall of the Roman Empire. The Copyright Act of 1976 extends the copyright duration for an additional 19 years in the U.S., and the New York Yankees signed baseball player Reggie Jackson. And so along with all of that, there were some really great albums released by some amazing artists like the Eagles, Queen, Styx, Aerosmith, Rush, Kiss, Blue Oyster Cult. You can see some of those albums here around me. Just some really great stuff. And then I've got here 6 runner-up albums. Normally I have 5, but I'm going with 6 today, and in a little bit you'll see why. But the first one up goes to Kansas, Leftoverture. It's their 4th studio album. This one here is where Kerry Livgren, the guitar player, really kind of came into his own and began contributing more. He wrote all of the tracks except 3, and then he co-wrote those. And it's just really good, hard driving rock mixed with some amazing melody and really, really tight instrumentation on this album here. Of course, it features the classic rock staple, Carry On Wayward Son, and just, in my opinion, one of the greatest rock anthems of the 70s, that opening harmonizing with the vocals, and then when the whole band kicks in on it, it just puts this thing right over the top. And ultimately, the album itself would be certified 4 times platinum, so it did very well for the band. All right, the next one goes to Black Sabbath, Technical Ecstasy, 7th studio album. I know might be questionable for some of you guys, but I love this one. And so despite receiving those mixed reviews, it was a commercial success and certified gold in the US. The album, though, does continue the band's separation from the doom and darkness and that was so popular and the trademark of their earlier albums. But despite those changes and being one of those lesser albums that fans don't generally like, I always really liked this album. It featured some really great songs on it, like the raging opener Backstreet Kids and Rock and Roll Doctor, and then my personal favorite Dirty Women is on here, and just whole album start to finish is great. So that's why this one is popping in as one of my runner-up albums. All right, and so this is why I have 6 runner-up albums and not just 5 like the normal. ACCDC put 2 albums out in 1976, and I simply couldn't choose, so I'm presenting them both here to you. This one here, High Voltage, which was their debut international release, but was actually their second album, so their first one being TNT in their home country of Australia. This one here does contain tracks from both of those, and it features the hits like Live Wire, TNT, It's a Long Way to the Top, and The Jacks. So this one here, just really great, a lot of good tracks, maybe because it did mix the first two albums together on it, ultimately being certified 3 times platinum. But then, the same year, they released Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap, and it was their second studio internationally, but it actually wasn't released in the US until 1981. So some of you guys might be wanting to pick that in 1981, and that's totally fine. I'm choosing to go with the first release of the album, no matter what country it was that it came out in, but that's how I'm doing it. And so this one here at least is making it as runner-up, and there's some really great standout tracks on this one here. Of course, you got the title track, Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap, but you've also got Problem Child, Big Balls, and the classic Ride On. Just really great top to bottom, ultimately selling 6 million copies in the US, probably because it was released in '81, picked up on the success of Back in Black, but great album nonetheless. And then next one goes to Led Zeppelin Presence, 7th studio album from them, and I was always intrigued by the album art and what they called the object. I had referred to it as the obelisk, but apparently it's called the object, and was created by Hypnosis. And it just goes to show you that great album art can always make the music on an album better and can make that sort of impression on you. And this album certainly did that with its art and with its music. And despite receiving the mixed reviews at the time that it did become a commercial success for the band and went to the top of the charts and has sold 3 million copies in the US. But besides 1975's Physical Graffiti, which is a personal favorite of mine, this one here has always been a favorite as well, and features Achilles' Last Stand, For Your Life, and Nobody's Fault But Mine, which was actually the track that got me into Led Zeppelin. That was the first song that I heard. I was blown away, and I was like, wow, I gotta find out who this band is, and found out it was on this album. So this was the first Led Zeppelin album I bought, so it's always gonna hold a special place in my heart just for that reason alone. But there's no bad songs on it, which is why it's definitely one of the best albums of 1976. And the final runner-up album goes to ZZ Top, Tejas, 5th studio album by them. And this one here was a transitional album for the band. Their way of recording began to change on this one, using more modern instrumentation and techniques in the studio. Of course, featuring the hits It's Only Love and Arrested for Driving While Blind, which I personally love. But I tend to like this album a lot because of the lack of hits that are on here. It's the lesser known songs that I think are really great on this one, in particular El Diablo and Snappy Khaki. Love those 2 tracks. Crazy title on the second one there. Ultimately, the album was certified gold, and it's just a really, really good album. But my favorite album of 1976 goes to Boston and their self-titled debut, one of the finest recorded and produced albums in all of rock, in my opinion. And the thing is, it was actually the original demo that was simply just enhanced in the studio by guitarist Tom Scholz, who produced it. I think he's a studio genius, popularized the layering production effect. And this would be something that other bands like Def Leppard on Hysteria and so forth would really use to great effect themselves, but it became so much more popular after this. He really, shone a light on it and showed what you could do in a studio kind of a thing. And features some stunning songs on here. More Than a Feeling just has a beautiful intro that then soars into one of the greatest 70s rock songs ever. You've got Peace of Mind on here, which is a perfect melding of acoustic and electric instrumentation with some real fantastic riffing on that one. And then one of my favorites, Foreplay Long Time, with that instrumental intro on it with the organ, simply outstanding. And then the huge drums on it, I just love. And overall, the sound of this album, it has a great mix of those electric and acoustic instrumentation parts on it, and huge soaring vocals, big guitars to match. Just a powerful AOR masterpiece, in my opinion, which is why this is my favorite album of 1976. All right, and there you go. Best albums by year, 1976. The year I was born, pretty good year if I say so myself. Do check the description for links to related videos. In particular, I'll leave a link for the top 10 American rock bands and 10 rock albums everyone should own, two of my most popular videos. If you haven't seen them, perhaps you'll enjoy it. I'll also leave a link to 5 albums I can't live without, the 70s rock edition, as it ties into this here. And since Black Sabbath just released the 45th anniversary of Technical Ecstasy, I have done a full unboxing and review of that album and box set there. So I'll leave a link to that in the description below as well. And certainly if you've enjoyed this video, please share it out on social media. Help spread the word that way. I would also really appreciate it. All right, everyone, take care, have a good day, and don't forget to check back for 1977.